Know that growth breaks your practice. That when you grow, everything breaks. It's inevitable. It will happen. And today we're talking about what to do and how to know when that is happening.
Yeah, I think the funny thing is the cool thing about being a business owner is that you kind of have a you kind of don't have a ceiling. Like there's less of a cap than if you were just working the job that maybe you're providing. So in this case, like the practice owner can make a lot more being a practice owner than they can being a therapist, right? Delivering that one-to-one session. And the reason why I like to, maybe this is like delusional, but I like to convince myself that we get paid to fix all the problems. So when something is broken, we're the one who has to step in and fix it, usually. Unless you have an awesome team or just some really, really great employees that maybe help you out on the way up there. And so when it comes to fixing those problems, you can be the type of business owner that puts a piece of duct tape over it and has to come back to it in 3 months. Or you can be the person that systematically comes up with an operative process for fixing problems in a way that they no longer have to fix the same problem over and over again. Sometimes it's an education gap. Sometimes it's a robot helping you out, like an automation or something. Sometimes it's a person, like a butt in a seat, helping you do the thing so that the thing doesn't keep breaking. But let's get into it.
I have a 4-year-old, and we're constantly in a race with pants and shoes specifically. Will he wear them out first, or will he outgrow them first? Both result in needing to replace them, but they kind of come from very different sources. And we've felt this in our own businesses, and we see it every day in therapy practices, that it's a little confusing when something that was just working stops working. And it's sometimes happening because you're growing and you outgrew the usefulness of your tactic, your mindset, your fill in the blank, your marketing strategy. Or sometimes it breaks because you're just even trying to grow and that strategy is not equipped to get you there. Psychology today is a great example. It's a nice thing to do when you first open up your practice or when you first hire your clinician, but you quickly outgrow that if you want more leads or referrals coming in to fill a caseload beyond what it gets. And so you have to go build and do something new to meet your needs if they're beyond what, Psych Today as a marketing strategy will provide. So you need to be very cognitive inside of your practice when you're in growth mode. What feels gross, what is breaking, what you're outgrowing as you're just trying to push the whole thing forward.
Yeah, the way that I kind of think of this is maybe like a tube that you're pushing water through. And how big the tube is will restrict how much water can flow through it at any given time. And as an operator, as someone who's like building your practice, you have to understand the dimension of the tube and you have to understand when or where the tube is breaking. And so if you ask yourself, hey, I've constructed this business today, but if I double it, will that break my tube? Where in my tube will it break? Or will it cost too much to have this tube in place to facilitate the 2x? And so you kind of have to like work this tube. And the tube that I'm referring to is you're turning strangers into dollars for your practice essentially. And sometimes those strangers keep coming back through the tube, and sometimes they don't. And sometimes they refer their friend to enter the tube. And sometimes you want a bigger tube out of necessity. Sometimes you want a bigger tube for other reasons. But everything that has to do with this tube is what you should what you should be keeping your eyes open for.
And then that also comes in along the way, you are going to run into attrition on your strategies. Search engine optimization might be a piece, or your clinical. I saw a great newsletter by Julie, one of our partners from Green Oak Accounting, and she was talking about the fact that if your goal is to hire 10 therapists this next year to grow, and you miscalculate that 3 or 4 of your current clinicians are going to leave you by the end of the year, you won't end the year meeting your goal if you only hire 10. You actually need to hire 13 or 14 clinicians because of the attrition of the thing kind of currently breaking the cost to play, essentially. And so that's often happening at the same time that you're trying to grow, and just in general, that entropy that is happening inside of your practice is in constant motion. I feel like, I just redid all of my closet doors less than a year ago, and one of them already broke and fell off 2 days ago, and I'm gonna have to go and buy a new one to put that in. And so there's this maintenance cycle that you never get away from your current business, and you have tough decisions to make. And Attilio, maybe you can speak to this. How do we know when we're just stuck in a necessary maintenance cycle because businesses have work to be done, and when the volume of things that break is an indication that we need to build something new to outgrow the current premise?
Yeah. You have a good quote. I'm quoting other people usually, but you have a good quote, and you said businesses always have a squeaky wheel, right? Talking about like this cart that has a squeaky wheel. And so I love that closet analogy. And when you guys think about it, if you want a bigger house, that means you're going to have more problems to fix, right? You're going to have more closets to break. If you have 20 closets in your house, and in 1 year, how many closet doors might break? You know, that would, if you're comparing yourself to a house with one closet, you only have one closet door to fix, but a house with 20 closet doors might have like 4 or 5 closet doors to fix. And so I think when we're looking at isolating and identifying when a problem is a restriction, and it's kind of why I like the tube analogy so much, is there's somewhere in your tube, as strangers become new clients, there's somewhere in that tube, or somewhere in the tube where you're fulfilling client services and creating new referral or advocates for your practice. There's something in there that is a systemic issue or one-off issues. And I think maybe it's just from experience that you start understanding there's probably a mathematical system to it, right? If you have all this plotted out with data, but you can find restrictions to your, it's called throughput. Okay. The reason why I like the tube analogy is if you Google search throughput, they're going to show you a tube. Okay. And the tube is narrowing and widening at different points, and it allows water to go through it at different rates. And so a tube that's maybe wider in one area or can accept more. So if you have 20 therapists, you can accept a large volume of new clients coming in versus if you have 5 therapists. So you can accept a large volume. And it's your job to understand where the tube is too narrow and where the tube is maybe too wide so that you construct an adequate tube for your practice. And sometimes you'll find when you're isolating and identifying some of these issues that there's a system that you have to design that will allow you to grow consistently. Otherwise, you have to keep fixing the same problem in 3 or 6 or 12 months. And what you want to avoid is not having to fix the same problem over and over and over again. You want to have a system that helps you fix that problem, or a system that is scalable for the throughput that you're looking to get.
Yeah. A story comes to mind. When I was a junior in college, I failed a class for the first time ever, and it was Greek. I decided to take ancient Greek as my language. It wasn't maybe my best choice. I passed by the skin of my teeth for Greek 1, but I was in Greek 2, and I was suffering even more, and I didn't make it through the end. I missed by a couple points of getting a semblance of a passing grade. And so I was already down this rabbit hole, so I needed to finish one more semester of Greek still. And a couple problems arose. They only offered it in the spring, so I would have to wait, almost a full year before I could retake the class. So that's a long time for what I did learn to become pretty fuzzy. But it was also really clear that, I barely made it through Greek 1, but I was just being crushed under the weight of information. I'm not great at grammar. If you've ever read my newsletter, you probably know that, or syntax, and like just I wasn't remembering the words or the process or the principles, just getting crushed. I had to pass this class if I wanted to graduate on time. I had no other option. And it was like, great, where is my biggest restriction? Well, remembering the grammar volume that I needed and the words to test appropriately on it was my biggest issue. So I went and I learned a different note taking and a different flashcard memory process before I took that Greek class again. And I passed that class without probably spending any additional study time. I probably spent about the same amount of time studying that second time around as I did the first time around, but I got a B in the class and kept moving on through because I fundamentally changed the underlying approach and the resources that I had and how I approached them. And that's happening in your practice, right? Your marketing process for SEO or just in general. You might be doing all of the work, but your approach and your understanding or your provider with its plan might be all wrong. You might have a recruitment strategy, but it might not be big enough. It might not have the best assets related to it to facilitate hiring 10 new clinicians. I walk people through a heuristic of new, more, better. Often in your practice, to identify all of this, you either need to do something new, you need to do more of something you're already doing, or you need to make better something that is currently in place. And so you just have to unpack that when you think about outgrowing your current problems.
Yeah. Tony Robbins has an awesome quote that he says, if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always gotten. And I think the heuristic new, more, better goes for your practice. And I think it takes a little bit of energy maybe to be critical about what you're currently doing. There's like this example of this guy handing out flyers for his business, and he's like, yeah, not getting results, right? He's not getting results, and he asks a mentor after he's not getting results, and he's like, hey, why am I not getting results? I'm passing out like 100 flyers at my local whatever, and he's like, 100? We start at 5,000 flyers to start getting results. And so when you're thinking through it, like, are you doing enough volume to even realistically get the result that you want? When you're thinking about better, are you doing the actions and you're getting some result, but it's just not at the level that you probably could be or should be getting from that same thing? And we need to be realistic. And some of this comes from experience, some of this comes from asking others to see how they're doing. And then when you're thinking about new, maybe you're already doing something and it's working and you're like, hey, I just need a new Lego piece at this point. Like we can't. Sometimes you've already done the more and the better, and you just need something new, right? Or sometimes you just need new to compare it against what you're currently doing. Sometimes you're looking at something and you're saying, I need to 2x my business, and maybe you're at a full private practice, and something new to double your business isn't just double your clinicians. Maybe it's just buy another building and then fill that with 20 clinicians. And you're doing something new then at that point by operating a new business, by not a new business, but a new location, right? New location, new market. And so think through it like that. There's different options that you have at widening that tube and scaling how you want to scale.
Go with luck, inevitable in that process. We'll see you guys next time.
Yes.